Representative John Duarte from California's 13th District, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. Representative, you come from a fourth-generation immigrant family.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up on a farm?
Well, it was great. My family's actually third generation on my mom's side from Swiss ancestry, and fourth, fifth, sixth generation on my dad's side from the Portuguese immigration. And so the Portuguese side's all of the Azores Islands, which is a very small population, but makes up a huge number of the Portuguese immigrants in the Central Valley of California. And so we've been part of that culture for as long as I can remember. I've always grown up in agriculture. A lot of times since I graduated college on the farm here in Modesto, California. Before that, I grew up with quite a few years down in San Diego. My parents had a my parents had a houseplant nursery right on the Mexican border, right on Otay Mesa. Literally, the back of the property was a quarter mile from the Mexican border, the wire fence, barely delineating it back then. And I've grown up working alongside Hispanic families and immigrants all my life, really.
Right. And how has you feel that deep connection to the land and the nursery has shaped your values?
Well, I think when you work in nature, when you work in farming, when you work in the real world, even if it's a machine that can break or work, you can't lie to any of it. It's not about words and ideas and rhetoric. It's about what's happening now and make it keep happening. In agriculture, of course, we have the global markets issues that can impact us at any times. We have ups and downs. We have good times and bad. We have weather conditions that can greatly affect us and set us back, or we can get lucky for a few years and move forward. So I think working in agriculture is just a really special gift that ties you to real world stuff.
And was there someone in your family or maybe close to you who you learned from the importance of having moral values in your life?
Well, my dad was a real leader when it came to labor relations with his working families. He, in the 1960s, had a bracero camp right outside Modesto in Empire, California, where my mom would actually take us there for dinner. It was a labor camp for bracero migrant workers, and his partner was Marcos Renteria. So he had a Hispanic labor camp partner who kind of took care of the labor and the operations side, and my dad took care of the sales and the business side. And I think they were business partners for over a decade. Still good friends. I still know the Renteria family and relate to them. But he always had a very, very important tenet, which was you don't have employees, you have people that work for you. And your people that work for you have their own dreams. And are working for you today, but you might be working for them tomorrow, and that's what America is about. And then always take time to really walk the greenhouses, talk to people. I come to Washington, I find out, hey, in some staffs you don't even talk to the member if you work in the member's office. Like, really? Got all these great young kids around me. I want to talk to all of them. And same thing in work. You really want to be out there, available to all people at all levels of the company. Available, open door policy. You want to come talk to somebody named Duarte? Come in the office. You can sit down and talk to someone named Duarte.
Right.
And it makes for a healthier business.
And is there any experience that maybe has given you some enlightenment about what you wanted to do with your life? Maybe when you were a kid and you saw your father having this business in the border of Mexico. Is there anything that stood up for you?
Well, I've always taken and my family's always had a deep engagement with politics and public policy of all types. We've always been really willing to step right into it. I've had water battles when I wasn't elected to anything. An article came out in the LA Times, I think a few weeks ago, about communities that had let municipalities dump sewage sludge on their farmlands years and years ago, thinking it was fertilizer. It wasn't. Well, that was a battle my dad had in Modesto back in the early 90s, saying, no, we don't know enough about sewer sludge. We're not going to be dumping it on our farmland. Well, it turns out it's loaded with PFAS. And it's causing a huge environmental and food safety concern on some farms. It was like, I forwarded him over the article on text. He's 89, but he's still pretty savvy. He said, "Look, Dad, you were right." So I think we've always had an interest in these public policy issues. We've had some battles with the government. We've been clients of the Pacific Legal Foundation on some wetlands and right to farm issues. But people ask me, "Did you run for Congress because you had that big battle with the government?" I said, no, I think I'm just that guy. I think I had the battle with the government, and then other challenges I've chose to take it on, as well as running for Congress and representing in Congress, because I'm willing to step into things if it comes with some stresses, it comes with some controversy. It really doesn't bother me if I know I'm doing the right thing from my set of values. And this is a deliberative body. We all bring in our own values, we all bring in our own perspectives. So it's okay to disagree.
Right.
But let's just disagree on policy and have an honest debate.
Agree to disagree. Yeah. And I've seen a quote of you, a very interesting one. They said, you can't lie to trees and you can't lie to your bank account. So how has that mindset prepare you for the challenges of actually serving?
Well, yeah, that's back to the real world, right?
Uh-huh.
If you've run a business and you've had to make payroll, and you've had to make payroll in some tough times, and when the money is short, it's your payroll that doesn't get covered. You know, because you got to pay the employees. They didn't choose the set of risks, the ups and downs that the employer did. And in farming, again, I mean, if you have animals or plants, it's phenomenological. It's not theoretical. You fertilize the plant, it does well. You choose to change your inputs. You change to water more, water less. Choose certain genetics. That all has an outcome. And if you do it well, you move ahead. Here in Washington, sometimes words will carry you further. Words won't carry you very far in an orchard or on a dairy.
So, and as a grandson of immigrants, what does the American dream to you?
Well, that's a good one. Both my grandfathers came over, and in the Modesto area, if you're a Swiss immigrant or a Portuguese immigrant, you just want to get going, you bought a 40-acre dairy, right? You had one of those aeromotor windmills. That's the symbol for my official office, is literally an old windmill profile. You had a windmill, it pumped up water, it put it in a tank house, that provided the pressure for water for your home. You had maybe 20 or 30 cows on 40 acres. You grew hay in the summer and you put it up in the winter, and you fed the cows on that, and you kind of inched along there until you can get a foothold, and that was the beginning of the American dream. My Swiss grandfather came over when he was 19, and they had Spanish flu then, which was just like COVID now. Got sick, got set back, but he kept going, got better. Went back and got my grandmother when he was 29. They got married, had 6 kids right through the Depression, from 1930 to 36. Bought an old farm in bankruptcy during the Depression, and it still had the windmill and the barn, and they just grinded it out. I mean, but it was his choice. He could have taken an easier job in town, made some money, lived a little bit better, but not bought property, not ran his own dairy. But he did, and that started to build up the American dream for my family. And we just celebrated a few months ago the 100th anniversary of his coming to America. He came over in 19, but COVID kind of shut that down, so our family got together a couple years later. And I was like, and they asked me to speak, because I was a congressman, so had to say something, right? Even with my own family, uncles and cousins and stuff, they still put up with me. And I said, we really got to make sure the American dream that was alive when my grandparents came over, and my great-grandparents, is alive today. And part of the reason I ran for Congress is I don't believe that's entirely true. It used to be you come to America, you work hard, you work weekends, you work long hours, you do tough jobs, and you could get ahead, and you could buy a home, or you could buy a small business. Nowadays, American, working families are coming to America. They're working hard. We have high minimum wage laws in California. We have, all these government programs for dependency and support. But at the end of the day, we don't have high wages and low prices and the kind of affordability that immigrant families used to have, that would allow them to save up a little and then build their American dream, really scratch it out if they had to. And I think that's a real travesty. I think there's families, even families who've been in America for generations, who are still putting dinner on their credit card. We're seeing prices go up, consumer debt go up. This might be the first generation in America where we actually have working families that go to work every day, striving for the American dream, taking produce and protein off their dinner plate and reverting to a starch diet. These are stories I'm hearing in my district of families that work and can't afford to eat as well today as they did 5 years ago, because the high cost of living, the high cost of gas, groceries, electricity, rent, and wages can go up, but they've got to go up a lot when you start talking about 40% increase in costs.
And how can you think the American dream can still be preserved?
Well, we've got to supply the economy with energy. We've got to have affordable energy. We've got to drill, baby, drill. We've put so much money into windmills and solar panels and expensive energy because of doing more than our share for climate. But we're not taking care of the American working family. When we, in my district, and we have Pacific Gas and electric customers paying 47 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. That is insane. I mean, these are families that work in the fields all day, that come home and absolutely cannot run the air conditioner in their homes. It could be 105 degrees out. I'll be knocking doors in these districts, in this part of my district. The screen door will be closed, the door of the house will be open. These families are ventilating their homes in the Central Valley in the afternoon, in the summer, 105, 108 degree temperatures because they can't afford air conditioning. And that's not fair. These are hardworking people. They deserve a decent life.
And as a father, what legacy do you wish to give to your 4 children, your grandchildren?
Well, I hope that they live their lives. I hope they take things on. I hope they step into the world and say, you know what? That's wrong. I'm going to do something about it. Or at least I'm going to try. And whatever inspires them, whichever direction they go, I hope they realize, you get one spin on the marble, right? You live and you die, and you only get one shot at it. So, and then I always joke around. I say when kids are born, a lot of parents will think about, oh my God, Harvard, Yale. Are they going to go to UC? What school are they going to go to? By the time your kids are turning 20, you're saying, God, I hope they find someone great to spend their life with. And so I just encourage them to really weigh those things.
And to still be connected with nature like you did when you were a child?
Yeah, if that's their inspiration. I mean, my son Isaac, he can't wait to go up in the mountains and hike. He does some incredible hikes that I've never had an urge to do whatsoever.
And just still also be like on the farm industry.
Yeah, and then he farms our ranches for us now. He's just out of school, but he's doing a great job. And another one of our children, Anne, our oldest daughter, our oldest child, is over in Australia. They had America shut down when she graduated college, so because my wife is Australian, she got a dual citizenship. She went to Sydney, Australia, and started a career there and started a life there, and now we don't know if we're going to get her back or not. So yeah.
And also another
2 other daughters, 2 more daughters.
Okay.
One just graduated, Cassandra, and then Elizabeth is still in school.
Nice, wow. But so to just like maybe have like an overall of like what your family's immigrant story has shaped your approach to public service. How can you describe that?
Well, I think pretty much all immigrant stories are similar, very, very similar in many ways. One is if you come from a village in Mexico or a village in the Alps of Switzerland or off the Azores Islands, your family probably had about the same situation living-wise for the last 10 generations. Not just technologically, but economically. America has been the land of plenty, the American dream, and everyone who comes to America, whether it's a recent immigrant or an old immigrant, has for the first time in their family's history, most likely, faced a real opportunity to change the welfare and the success and economic condition of their family. And that's been a very healthy thing for America. We attract the people who want to come and contribute and work and build their American dream and really become partners in each other's American dreams in a great sense. And so I think, having seen it close, I lived when we were starting the company. My brother and I lived in the little tiny, one of those little Sears and Roebuck farmhouses you could order out of a catalog and build it yourself, with the skeleton keys in the door and, really crappy insulation. And we lived in there for 4 or 5 years. We were starting the company. My grandfather passed away and we moved into his old house. And you really appreciate that was a success story for him at the time. And of course for us it was, low maintenance living. It was just a couple of 20-something guys starting a business. And my wife Alexandra actually moved in there with us when she after we met, and she came to stay with me, and so we were really willing to start there again. But it really gave us, this isn't where my grandfather started. This was his dream, and he died in that house, and he was actually giving his kids money and helping them get started on education and build up their lives. Well, he lived in a really crappy house.
Wow.
And so it was all about, the legacy he was building for our generations. And again, it's important we keep that.
And anything else you would like to share about your inspirational story?
Well, it's where I get a lot of my policy from. When I talk about pro-energy, I get very upset with resource abandonment. When we talk about water flushing out to the ocean to save fish that we haven't saved in 40 years, but we keep flushing that water off of our farms and out into the ocean. When we see the aquifers in the Central Valley where I live concentrating, and the contaminants in the water being very bad for a lot of the small communities, a lot of the communities of farm workers that live there in the Central Valley, because we're not delivering clean treated surface water to these areas. When I see not drilling American oil, not drilling American gas, not having an abundant energy policy that really provides the foundation for that affordability and economic growth that gives new immigrants the same chance at the American dream that we had. Unaccountable schools with lack of parents' choice. So you come from America, you're supposed to get educated. Maybe you work in the fields, but your kids are going to college. They're going to become, whatever's next. That means they got to start with good schools. So resource abandonment, lack of accountability in our government services, these things bother me a lot because they have a very real human effect on people who can do more and can achieve more if we have the right policies. And so these things get me. I'm also carrying a very comprehensive immigration bill. I am, as Republicans go, very forward-leaning on amnesty. I know the families. They work in my company. They work in our communities. My kids have gone to school with their children. Don't tell me we're going to deport them. We're not. They've been here building these communities, building these businesses, building their lives. We need an amnesty program. We need a DACA program. And if we really want to get these things done, we have to link it to a very, very serious border security program. We need to take H.R. 2 with some nips and tucks, but H.R. 2, true border security, hook it to true amnesty program, a very broad amnesty program, a very broad DACA program. And I think the Safe and the Secure and Fair Elections Act, the SAFE Act, is very, very important also, because if we have amnesty, and we have families who've inadvertently registered, or individuals who've inadvertently registered to vote, and those ballots get cast. And I can tell you, I had several of my employees last time at the nursery tell me they came to cure my ballot at my home, and I never voted. Voting as a non-citizen is a felony and will disqualify a lot of people who would otherwise be eligible for amnesty from having amnesty if they have that crime on their record. And so we should get verifiable voter registration for citizens only, and it will protect a lot of people who will be seeking amnesty in the future. So I'm carrying an immigration bill that deals with a lot of these priorities I have that are based in my own personal experience, but also, I represent a 65% Hispanic Voting Rights Act district, and this district deserves a representative who's going to go to the mat on their issues. And these are their issues.
That's very important, and thank you so much. We look forward to having you on the show next time to talk a little bit more about your projects and the proposals you're doing in Congress. But Representative John Duarte, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
And it was great hearing your story. Excellent. It was really inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.